Cory, welcome to the program. It's great to see you.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
I want to hear all about your business. I understand you started in HVAC when you were a teenager, around 13 years old. So why don't you start with that and then tell me what you're doing now?
Yeah, so interesting story. I mean, going farther back, it was a little bit different world. Pretty simple stuff, right? You just had AC, R22.
Mm.
That's it. There's not much of anything other than it's broke, fix it, install a new one, move down the road, build some ductwork. And it was a pretty interesting time. It was pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And then you fast forward to today where you have communicating, modulating systems that you can control through your phone. Huge difference.
Huge, huge. Now, you have been in this business, as I said, since you were 13. You grew up with it. Tell me a little bit about your father.
Yeah, and so my dad came from Germany. He was like 18 months old and landed in West Texas, McCamey, Texas, of all places, at Oil Town, and then ultimately ended up in San Angelo, Texas, which is West Texas, and started his AC business, I think, around 76. And from there, he's been in business 44 years now, something in that area. He still has his business there. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm a second generation, and we learned everything you can think of in terms of light commercial and residential AC.
I'll tell you, in Texas, you definitely need air conditioning for a couple reasons. One is the heat, and the other is the humidity, depending upon where you are in Texas. Now, West Texas, not so much, dry. Right. I'm in Houston, so we need it to dehumidify as well as stay cool. And you being in the DFW area, it's a combination of both. Oh gosh, it's hot, but also we need to pull the humidity out. And a lot of people don't understand that. It's a big dehumidifier, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you can get all science, the science side of it. I kind of geek out on this stuff. I love it. I'm a nerd. And so when I like to talk enthalpy and saturation points and what is it really doing? But we don't talk that way to customers, of course, because it wouldn't make sense. But among peers, it's really interesting to see the technology changes, especially in variable speed, or what we call modulating. Mm-hmm. And so the technology really allows us to do exactly what you said, is dehumidify. And they've kind of turned everything up on its head, because in science you say, hey, this has a point on this plot, a point here, and a point here. But then when we do variable speed, we can actually morph that, and they can make it do things differently and flash differently. And, but yeah, it's really important. One thing that we do is we do load calculations, right? A lot of companies have never done it. And the reason it's important is because of what they call latent heat. And that's humidity control. Really, that's a fancy way to say, how much can this system actually remove humidity? And it's that piece that's really important.
A lot of people don't. Yeah. And, a lot of people don't understand that it's important to make sure that your units are sized right and they're running properly. Because if they cycle off too quickly, it may cool per the thermostat. Thermostat might be asking for 72. It says fine, but the problem is cycles off too early and the humidity's still in the home. That's why it's important to have a great HVAC technician.
Absolutely, because there's a huge disparity between across company and company, or even tech to tech, that truly have been to where the leadership is saying, no, it's really important that we train you on all these things so that you truly understand from a holistic standpoint how these systems really work. And, most people don't even know you've got to have a minimum of 19-minute runtime to even start to dehumidify. Like it really, the first 12 minutes, you don't get any dehumidification. So if I have a system turning off and on too frequently, it's just it'll cool, like you said, but it'll feel sticky. It just won't be comfortable.
It won't be comfortable. And when it is stickier, it feels warmer.
Exactly.
So the thing about cooling a house is totally different than heating a house. It's actually easier to heat. It's kind of simple. Sure. Heating is simple. A lot of people don't understand this, but as you know, when you are cooling a house, you're actually taking the heat out of the air. You're not throwing cold air in. Explain that.
Well, so we try to break it down to people as easily as we can. So like, hey, the outdoor unit is really a heat extraction system. It's pulling moisture and heat out of your home, and then it's extracting it outside. And that's why it's hotter than the outdoor temperature. You'll always notice, like if your AC is working, go outside and feel the air coming out the top of the unit, and you'll know, hey, that's actually doing its job, because it's the second law of thermodynamics, and it's heat removal. So how much heat and moisture can I remove in a given hour with this piece of equipment? And that's really what we're doing. That's what sets us apart. But more importantly than sizing the system right is really designing the air distribution system correctly so that it does what it's designed to do.
So when you're doing a retrofit or you are doing new construction, it's really important to get the numbers down right. In other words, if it's a 3-bedroom home and 4 people are supposed to live in it, and you might figure a dog and a cat, how many cubic feet are in the house? You might use square feet, but it's really important to know how much cubic, I would imagine.
Yes.
Then you can really get down to what unit that is. Maybe it's a 3-ton, maybe it's a 5-ton, maybe we need this type of ductwork. It is science.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to get it right, it takes somebody who knows what they're doing, and you have to know what the design constraints are. What kind of building do I have? What kind of envelope do I have? What R value do they have in terms of insulation? Are we going to be placing the unit inside of an attic? Is it going to go in a basement? Is it going to go in a central AC, in a closet in the middle of the home? All those are 3 entirely different scenarios. It's not the, hey, it's rule of thumb, 400 square feet per ton, or what Google will tell you today, which is annoying to me. They're like, oh, 650 per ton. And I'm like, yeah, in Wisconsin,
Sure.
maybe, not in Texas. You're not getting that. Even in a spray foam house, it still doesn't, because you have other humidity issues that you're going to deal with, even though you have.
You mentioned a basement. We don't have a lot of basements in Texas. There are some, but it's rare. And it's interesting. You said, maybe in a, room in the middle of the house. When I build my next house in Texas, I do not want to put my utilities in the attic. I want a room in the center of the house that no one knows is a room.
Right.
Utility room. And I want the ductwork to just go up and out in that conditioned space, probably mostly a 1-level house, which you can do. It is convenient having your ductwork on a second floor when you're trying to cool the second and first floor, because cool air drops.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
but it's interesting. I mean, we like to call ourselves the kings of airflow, right? That's really what we focus on. We're always looking and saying, all right, and we've dumbed it down really well for our guys in the field. So they just have a sheet that's already, we took the ductulator and all the calculations and we put it on a nice little sheet where it's super easy to go, okay, I have 1 of those, 2 of those, 3 of those. I total them up and it's like, wait a second, I'm like 30% deficient in my airflow just on supply side. And then we add up the return and go, hey, in a perfect world, this is what we should have. And here's what you have. So it makes the customers go, oh, that's easy to see what you're saying. It breaks it down really well for the people to understand. Oh, okay. And then starting to explain to people, do you want to spend 30, 40 extra dollars in utilities? Because what you're doing is you're spending a lot of money, but you're not really getting what you're paying for. And then we have like high-tech tools like TrueFlow. I don't know if you've ever heard of the TrueFlow system, but it's about $2,000 or $3,000 for the set. But you can literally get down to, this system is producing this many cubic feet per minute. Like we did one, and it's really cool. Once you get good at it, you can do it in 7 minutes. Setup, testing, you do 4 different parameters, and it will truly go, this 5-ton has 182 CFM per ton, but it was designed for 400.
Wow. So it looks like behind you've got a mini split.
Yeah, that is right. Yeah, that's a Samsung mini split.
Yeah, that looks nice. That looks modern. I don't know if I've seen that particular one.
Yeah, that's their new 3.0. It's cool. Yeah, it's super quiet.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know what a mini split is, it is a great product. We have to do like a retrofit. Maybe you want to, make your garage a man cave and you're going to insulate it, put insulated doors in. Well, this would probably be the best way to cool that space, right?
Oh, absolutely. The key there is you get 100% of the cooling that it produces because you have zero loss. It's got two pipes that are fully insulated inside to outside. And then that head unit right there is like all of the cooling comes straight out of here. So you have zero loss. In a typical home, you lose 15% capacity just in ductwork. Then you
Sure.
put it in an attic and it's 140, closer to 20% reduction in efficiency. So most houses are oversized, but they have to be because of the design parameters.
A lot of people say that the mini split is too loud, but they're not that loud anymore, are they?
No, this is called the Whisper. The name is the Whisper. So yeah, they've got anywhere. I mean, you could get it higher if you need it to, but when it's on that low speed, you don't even know it's on. It's less than white noise. I think the decibel levels under 40.
So,
It's pretty like a whisper.
so would you recommend to someone who has a smaller home, maybe it's a one level home, to go that route instead of a traditional air conditioning unit?
It depends. You really have to set the design of the building out for it. It's got to make sense. The one thing that's hard about these is if I've got a ton of rooms and then bathrooms and then closets and then all of these multiple spaces when you have a really open floor plan, absolutely. But then you can use exhaust fans to help mitigate some of those issues. But yeah, you really have to design the buildings around the use of mini splits. And so different parts of the world, they just have single rooms or two rooms with two heads, and it works perfect. The way that we design our houses in North America are a bit different, but you'd really have to get with the developer and the guys and say, hey, but we still mostly only see it like as, hey, we're doing a man cave, we're doing a garage, or I've got an outdoor living space that I want to condition somewhat. And so mini splits the perfect scenario for that.
So you grew up, Cory, in the HVAC world. Did you think you were going to be in the world in the future as a man, as you are now? Or is that something you thought, well, I'll just do this with my dad, right? And then I'll go do something.
I had no clue. You
No
don't.
clue.
I mean, because the technology that we have today just versus 2004, right? The iPhone barely came out in 2004. No one remembers it. Nobody remembers pre-iPhone anymore and what we used to do, or before Google Maps and MapQuest. And you talk about the digital age and the differences there, and then how the HVAC industry's come along with that time to that. It's like, have the fundamentals of thermodynamics changed? No, but everything else has. The way that we communicate, the way that deliver, so many things have changed, and customer expectation. It's a vast difference even from 5 years ago.
In terms of your business, tell me what you're really best at, because you are the guy, right? And you run the business.
Right.
You have people who report to you that you have to keep motivated. You've got to have them trained and so forth. What are you best at in your business?
Leadership.
That's important, right?
That's key. Yeah, I mean, it goes right back to what you said. Motivation, keeping them motivated. There's got to be a why. I mean, if we're stuck back in the 1980s and it's like, look, this is a job, do what you're told, be quiet, put your head down, don't get fired. That's not much of a culture, right? We didn't even talk about culture in the 80s. Like that wasn't a thing. But now it's like, no, you really have to you've got to be a leader first. And in order to do that, then you have to have humility. You can't have an ego. You have to be able to be approachable and listen to your guys. And at the same time, set expectations and hold them to that expectation simultaneously, but in a way that motivates, and really getting into everybody's head to say, what gets you going? Like, what motivates you? And then do we all as a team come together and do something spectacular, right? Because individually, I can't do it. Individually, they can't do it. But if we all come together, then you've done something special.
I think you've done something special, because most technicians can't run a company. Just because you're a great technician doesn't mean you're going to be a great business owner. Do you feel that you're more of a technician or more of a leader?
And I'm 50-50 because I love teching. But what's really helped me is the fact that I've read probably 11 books just in the last 3 years of guys who were amazing leaders. And then you go in and take pieces and nuggets of what they're doing. And then you have to figure out, what's the perfect leader look like? That's who I want to be, and then you're working towards that every day. But I do have a 25,000 foot viewpoint of everything. I always see things from 5 years down the road.
Yep.
And that's where you have to understand I've got to have an implementer that can take all my ideas and make them happen, execute.
Yeah, as entrepreneurs, because it sounds like you're an entrepreneur as well.
Oh, yeah.
Which is important. We have all these ideas. And most entrepreneurs, I don't know about you, it sounds like you're a little different. Most entrepreneurs aren't necessarily good managers. They're very good at driving the ideas forward. They're visionaries. Like a Steve Jobs, a great example. Early on in Steve Jobs' career, he was really good at innovation and driving forward, working hard, but he really didn't care for people because they couldn't keep up. They weren't smart. They didn't care. Yep. And you find that a lot with entrepreneurs. It sounds as though you are actually a good manager and leader as well as an entrepreneur.
I'm working on it. No, I'm really trying to do that. No, okay. That's what we're definitely working on, because that is always the biggest disconnect. Is like, okay, you have a vision. Now you've got to get the why in. Learning how to do that is and scaling the business is much different. That's a much more difficult task, honestly, than doing the actual work of an HVAC technician. That's the easy part. But getting 7 people to drive in one lane at the same speed is very difficult. That's the biggest challenge, right? And that's also something that has to be learned. You don't pop out of your mama knowing all this stuff, right? You just, it's all learned. And so then you say, well, if I don't know how to do it, then I've got to do something. I would say the biggest key to my success is just figuring out that I don't know it all, and then going and finding those who do and paying them to coach me.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
That is, my big hairy goal is to build this to 10 million in HQ in 5 years, and then go open up 100 shops all across the nation and be a $300 million family owned and operated non-private equity leader.
Wow. That's non-private equity, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Because see, that's what's interesting. It's like no one ever talks about it. Everybody's, I scaled, I did this, I did that. I was like, yeah, I know. But you did it with somebody else's money. And that's okay too. And that's okay. That's fine. But what do you lose when that happens?
Control.
Not just that though, but it becomes so corporatized.
Yeah.
And that is the number one reason I left and opened my business 14 years ago, was because of the disdain that I have for corporate America as it pertains to an IPO'd company, quarterly earnings. You're going, and it's just Wall Street, right? And you're trying to non-humanize a human aspect of things, right? And so, like, how can you do both? How could you have the best of both worlds and still have highly motivated people that really work hard because they believe in the dream that you've provided with a crystal clear vision? That's the game.
A service company that size, without being corporate, is pretty much a unicorn. There aren't many of them.
Oh yeah, there aren't any. I mean, that's what I'm saying. You said big hairy goal.
Yeah. Okay. So it's.
Well, that doesn't mean that you don't have systems and operations. I mean,
no question.
Because you have systems, you have processes, you have operations. You've got something for everything. Everything's highly organized and structured, but you could still be family owned. I mean, and I've seen it multiple times. Even with, there's a case in point of a really great dealership here within they rep a specific brand. They were family owned with 15 locations, but then they really want to grow. And so then they take on corporate money. And then now they're 49 locations 3 years later. And you obviously know how that happens. That's private equity, right? That's the only way you can do that and scale at that level without massive debt burdens. And then that also causes another issue, because then you are now a slave to the machine, and you must sell at a 60% margin. And will the market yield that? And then now you're going to sit there and everyone you have to hire now has to be pushed so hard to make those numbers. And now it loses everything that it began with for the reason, right? Because is it all about money? I mean, that's what most people care about, but is it really? I mean,
Well, I guess the question is, Cory, should it be all about the money? Because in that
sure.
scenario you gave, it is about the money. When you have
Unfortunately.
stakeholders that
Sure.
are telling you, we're going to give you this money and you're going to do this, this, and this, and it is all about the money, then it's about the money. But I agree with you. I run my organization where I don't necessarily have to worry about stakeholders. I am the stakeholder, for better or for worse. Now, some people say, well, it's going to be hard for you to scale it. And I said, well, what makes you think I want to scale it to that size?
Right. Who said I wanted to be $100 million company
Exactly.
with private equity in 7 years so that I could just buy a bunch of people up, tuck it in, and then sell it for a 20x EBITDA rather than a 3.5 times or whatever it is. It's all what makes you tick, what gets you going. At the end of the day, we're a company that helps people. Like, we help people. That's what I love doing. I love helping people. I mean, and at the end of the day, it's just like Zig Ziglar says, right? Help everybody else get what they want and you'll get what you want,
Yeah.
So why not do it like that? And I think it can be done. Can you do it in a shorter amount of time? No, because scaling is the velocity of money, all of these things, economies of scale. You can go into all of the CFO side of all those things and like how you do it. And the math's pretty simple, actually. People think it's not that sophisticated. It's third grade math. I mean, but you lose heart, right? You lose what it really, that ethos of the company of what it was almost always goes away, except for, and there are a few unicorns. I'll give you an example. Warren Buffett purchased Nebraska Furniture Mart.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he owns it, he'll let them run it the way they always ran it, and it's still an amazing company. It didn't lose that feel. And so there are a few cases where it did, but there was still some private equity in there. But I mean, and when you get private equity, of course, you do have a responsibility. I mean, you've got a fiduciary responsibility to stakeholders to make their money earn money. Otherwise, what's the point? But that's like, so how do you do that, right? How do you scale? How do you grow? You have to be an amazing motivator.
Yeah, I would imagine, right? If you want to grow at a great rate and be successful, you have to be very good with people, motivate, know who to put in the right seat. And that's really important because you can't do everything yourself. So you need to identify the best you can, the right person for the right job to manage those people in that department. And then they have to have vision on people and so forth. And all large organizations, and most organizations should be, but most large ones that are successful are people organizations. They have to be.
Yeah, you have to. And then you've got to use modern technology like tests. I mean, they have all of these things that are so helpful because, you can go with your gut all day long, but there's certain tests out there today that they'll show you their IQ, their emotional IQ, and their just natural tendency of who they are. And you can say, okay, well, this type of personality would fit best in a CSR position. And this type of personality would be in an administrative role. This person would be in a field role with some administration, but mainly field. And, because everybody's personality is a bit different. But at the end of the day, you have to have the humility to lead, to be in leadership. And that's missing in so many ways today, unfortunately. It's all about the greenback. How many dollars can I make? But then what do you define to success as, right? Like for me, my success is like, if I can go through life and be, I'm married 15 years to my wife now with children. And I want to, I want to be a one-woman man and have a successful career and all. And that's almost something that you never, ever see. Like somebody who's really successful in business and family and who's like, unfortunately in our industry, like there's memes about it. Like, yeah, I'm on my second wife, third wife, still in HVAC. Because why? Well, you don't have balance, right? So there's no balance. And so how do you have balance and still maintain a trajectory of growth that you want to obtain? People. You've got to have people, the right people.
Yeah, Corey, some people say there is no such thing as balance if you want to grow an organization at a fast rate.
Hmm.
And I tend to agree with that to an extent. In other words, if you want to be the best athlete, okay, if you want to be the richest man or woman in the world, if you want to be Elon Musk, okay,
Yeah,
something's going to give on your personal side, like all of
absolutely.
it.
Yep.
And I I'd like to think I have balance in my life because I've made a decision
Hmm.
that my business life isn't my life. I'm different than most people. So
Sure.
if you were to meet me at a party somewhere at a barbecue and say, "Hey Jim, what do you do?" And this sounds wrong. I say, "Well, I do my family." In other words,
Yeah. No,
um,
I get it. Yeah.
people always expect to hear either you're a business owner, you're an attorney, you're a doctor, because that's your identity. My identity is I'm a husband and a father, and then I go into the entrepreneur business owner. Okay. And
I'm
that's
very
just the way
similar.
it is. But when I took the vows and when I told my wife and we have children, I'm going to be that father. How do I go against it? So what happens a lot is people get married because they're infatuated with each other, fall in love, and then they have children, and then they often become co-managers of the household, if you will, and they both go off and do their own thing, and then they might see each other on the weekend. But that's not how it started, and that wasn't the original intent, and that's why they get divorced, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, with so many distractions today,
Yeah.
it's so hard to be mindful and
Mm,
intentional.
it is.
And but it's almost like a business transaction though, with your family, because if you're good and you're like, hey, I have a good meeting every week with my staff. Well, I have a good meeting with my wife every week. Hey, how did I do? Did I
Mm.
meet your needs? Was there anything I didn't do? Anything I could do better? And then vice versa. Hey, no, we're good. We're tracking well this week. I mean, it's really about that intentional. Hey, are we communicating effectively? And these are things that I've learned through, like, my business coach, who's also a clinical psychologist. He's just an amazing guy, and it's a gift from God that he has, and he's living out and fulfilling his gift. And it's probably one of the smartest things I've ever done is just hire him to to help me keep that balance and not just in a normal way, but in a righteous way, right? But that's a big thing for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Corey, this has been great. I could talk to you forever.
Yeah, I say
Um,
I
and
told you I like doing stuff.
yeah, this is awesome. And let's definitely do this again soon. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.